So we're off and running now, guys. Good little chat there. As we're recording, what we found is if people come in and they're not muted, we've been finding that it looks a little bit like Planet of the Apes. So let me get this going here. Participants, now I can't mute you. Here we go. So sorry about this, guys, but you are now all muted. Planet of the Apes comes in the last few things I've been doing. What you get is pots and pans go off, and it looks a bit like this. Starboard. Port. Up. Get out of my way. Up. Point to sail. So that's what's been happening. All right, Katie's found a way of answering my questions. Well done. So I'm going to get straight into it because I have to record. This will be recorded for others who couldn't make it tonight. So I'm the water rat. I think not many people know why that came in. I'll explain that one later. I didn't actually start sailing dinghies until I was 48. So 12 years ago, you know how old I am now. And I lived on the river very near the club. I had sailed big boats beforehand, but not very well. I had young kids at the time, so we motored a lot. So I'd done a little bit of sailing. So I've only been sailing for about 12 years. I'll show you a little bit about what the boats that we are, or we should be sailing right now at this point in time. So if we have a little look here, can you all see that? Good. That's the Vision. We would be training in those. That's the Thames. That's me in the safety boat in the background. The other boat's the Enterprise, another double-hander, a bit quicker than the Vision. So whether you've been down with us or not, these are the kind of boats you'll see. Here we have our single-handed fleet, and again on the river. So, oh God, that's me, bottom left there. Look at the hair on that, in the good old days. So single-handed fleet, which I hope that after you've done a course with us on the double-handers, the Visions, you'll move on to either Enterprises, if you've got a mate, because of course you need two people to sail those, or you get onto these single-handed lasers. So at the moment, I can just see Bastion. Doesn't matter. I'm hoping that I'm appearing somewhere in your windows. Kate, you've got a way of putting your fingers up and saying, yes, I can. If you do that, that'd be great. That's the Enterprise, and that's me in glorious younger days about 5 years ago in Lake Garda. And this is also me just after the, no, well, it was a different time. So just to get you into it, I'm also an offshore cruising instructor, yacht master offshore, and I teach back down in the Solent. So hopefully some of you will want to move on to these big boats with us later. You're doing the right thing learning on dinghies because you get all your wind awareness and things that, I mean, that guy leaning on the boom there, he will be probably winching and told to stand up there. He won't learn much about sailing. This is actually me trying to overtake the boat on the right, which was our chief instructor at the time. I sailed into a wind hole, he went past me and won, but never mind. Now, this is what we should be doing, flying around the river. Obviously, that's me after a large lunch. I'm putting this up because it does make a difference here. This is what we can do in September. We take a huge group of people over to Vasiliki, which is in Lefkas in Greece, and we sail there for a week. Now, depending on what happens with the old lockdown, or whether it happens or not, whether we get out there and get on the river for your courses, this is a brilliant opportunity. And I've penciled 80 places for the last week of the season, which is September, October. And we could even finish our courses out there. I've come to some agreement with them. So then more of that for later. Okay, we'll get straight into this. One of the advantages of doing the theory with us now, and a bit of it online, is that we'll have more time on the river. when it comes to going out sailing on the course itself. Even though we'll have to go over the theory again, if some of you have got it, there'll be less questions and so more sailing time. Let's go straight on to what I'm doing now. That's what I was doing in Vasiliki, but this is what I'm stuck with coronavirus-wise, building raised beds. I don't know why that slide's in there. I think the girlfriend's thrown it in. Some lovely wall boxes there, if you fancy a bit of that. But we're going to start with this, guys. Let's blow that up a little bit. Tonight, we're just going to talk about points of sail. Okay, so where your sails have to be, how you can sail with relation to the wind, whether you want to sail up into the wind, towards the wind, across the wind, with the wind on the side of the boat, or even with the wind behind you, going downwind, as we call it. So, first thing, no-go zone. The no-go zone is somewhere you cannot sail. If you turn your boat up into that no-go zone, then all that's going to happen is your sails are going to flap. You need to be able to at least have filled your sails close hauled. And I just point out a few little things here. Here's a pen coming up. So this boat here is close hauled. If you can see, his sails are pulled right in as tight as possible, and he's sailing as close hauled to the wind as you possibly can. If he was to turn into this area here, his sails would just flap. They wouldn't be full. At the moment, they're pulled right in tight. If you can see the sail boom there on the right-hand side. So he's close hauled. Some people call it beating. The wind's on the port bow, and I'll come to that in a minute, sailing as close as possible to the wind with his sails right in tight. Okay? Now, when we actually go out on the river, the first thing we do is we have a joyride, we have a bit of fun, and then we slowly hand over the reins, or the tiller and the rudder, control of the rudder to you. And we usually do what this guy here is doing and sail on a beam reach. It's a lot of fun. It's actually the fastest point of sail. And if you can notice that instead of his sail being there, we've now let the sail out. Both these sails are now out halfway. Not a brilliant drawing, actually. Not mine. Mine's great. The actual drawing on the chart here. So he's on a beam reach. The wind is on the port beam. The beam is the side of the boat. We'll come on to port and starboard in a minute. Sails half in, half out. That's how I remember it. If you're on a beam reach with the wind directly coming here, coming down the page, then your sails are halfway in or halfway out. Very good one to remember. Then we go into a broad reach, which is further downwind, which is this guy here. We've now turned the boat away from the wind. We've turned the boat this way, and the sails are much further out here. Much further out, and I'll draw that. If you notice, the sails here, here, and here are roughly at the same angle, like that, and like that to the wind. So we've turned the boat, and as we've turned the boat, we've also had to do something with our sails, which is as we've turned around, we've had to let the sails out. We've had to ease our sails out. So I messed up the side, that right-hand side there. There are your points of sail. There are some more, quite usefully, on this side here, they've drawn what's called a close reach. So close hauled kind of says what it does, what it says on the tin. You've hauled your sails close in. The beam reach, the wind is on the beam. The broad reach, the wind is on the port quarter, and your sails are well out. Over here on this side, the arrow I just drew, you've got a close reach. Now, if you can see, he's not on this line here, which this boat here is. He's turned away a little bit. You will find later on that close reach is what I call the sexiest point of sail, because now you're sailing between a beam reach and the close hauled sails in, it's very, very important because you can pull your sails in and speed up and go up here a little bit, or you can let them out and go across onto a beam reach. Now, you've got control of the boat. You can speed up or slow down. You're using your sails as an accelerator. So the close reach is a very important one coming up. When we're actually on the river, and we will have been out in the boats before I teach you this theory. Usually you will have done some rigging, you'll get to know parts of the boat, we will have launched and we'll have had a bit of fun and a joyride, and I usually then will introduce this. On the first day we will get you sailing upwind. Now I'm not going to go into the broad reach quite yet. Let's just have a little look at what we can do if we get a whiteboard out. Okay, so close hauled, there's your no-go zone, there's your boat sailing right on the edge of it with your sails. I'm only going to draw one sail, even though you've got two on your visions. Your sails are close hauled, you're going right upwind. That's the no-go zone. Okay, so to get up to here, where we want to get to, you'll go up this way, and then you'll have to tack at that point, which is turning the boat, the front of the boat through the wind, and you'll go to the other side of the no-go zone with your sails hauled close in and sail up that way. So you've got a new no-go zone here, which is here. So to get up to this point, you'll have to tack again here to get up to it, turning the boat, the nose of the boat through the wind. By the afternoon of day one, we'll get you there, if the wind's okay and the conditions are fine. We will start sailing on beam reaches across here, sails halfway out, and we'll do big tacks around onto another beam reach. There and there. So beam reach, this is the beam of the boat. The sides is called the beam, and that's the first thing we'll do before we go close hauled. Happy with that for now? Well, I'm not asking you questions yet. If you've learned how to answer, we'll come to a few questions in a minute, guys. Okay. I'm back, I hope. I'm back in the game. We'll go back to have a little look at our little diagrams and whiz through a few of these. I don't know whether they're coming up on the screen. Here we go. We're coming back to this one. We looked at our no-go zone, port tack, starboard tack. I'm going to talk to you about it in a minute. When we turn and go downwind, like this, sorry, I've not got my pen up. Here we go. When we spin the boat around and go this direction, the wind is now behind us, sails are out. This is called a broad reach. Okay, and then there's another point of sail between the dead run, which is here. This is the dead run with the wind dead behind you. We don't teach you that in level 1 and 2, although we might do it accidentally on purpose from time to time to show you what it's like. There is another point of sail here, which is between the two, which we call a training run. So you will hear training run from time to time, and I'll explain later in these sessions. We've got about 8 of these sessions. We can get through all the theory in 8 sessions, 8 20-minute sessions. Okay, so these are most of the points of sail that you need to know for now, and I'll come back to a few little things in a moment. Do we know what happens? So a couple of little bits of terminology here. Give me a chance to change my pen over. Okay, so this boat is close hauled here. He is close hauled. Tacking, it says up here, from port tack to starboard tack, he's going to turn up through the wind and tack. Okay, you'll also hear that being called head up. You're heading up, and times your instructors might say, can you head up? And that means heading up into the wind. Pretty self-explanatory. There, if you're going this way and you're asked to head up, which is here, you're turning up into the wind, towards the wind direction, which is here. The opposite is over this side. This boat has been asked to bear away. He was close hauled. There, sails in tight. He's been asked to bear away. He's turned away from the wind. Nice big arrow there. So a bit of terminology there, because the instructors probably will say, can you head up? Oh, bear away, quick, you're going to hit another boat. Hopefully it'll become second nature in about 3 years. It takes about 3 years before you start to be able to bear away, head up, tack. I'm joking, of course. It took me 3 years because I didn't do this course. I pretended I knew how to sail, went out there and messed it up for 3 years until I decided to become an instructor, which was only 12 years ago. Okay, so I'm going to come back to you now and just say, if you ask, find out whether you've got any questions on that. Any questions? I'll unmute you, obviously. Anything there for me? You're all unmuted. Did I go through that a bit quick? You've got a few points of sail there. Everything okay with that, Marco?
Yeah.
Good. Kate and Bastian.
Yeah, all good. Thanks.
Anything you've got for me here, Bastian, or shall I move on to a couple more things? We're gonna make these sessions quite short and sharp, 20 minutes with an option to chat about them afterwards. And I think I've got about 8 sessions on the theory. One of the things I wanted to talk about, because we'll go on to collision regulations at some point, is what we mean by port and starboard and windward and leeward. So just let's talk about windward and leeward for a start. When I draw my diagrams, the wind always comes from the top of the page unless I say. So that boat sails are halfway out. You should remember this by now, perhaps. That boat is on a beam reach because the wind is on the beam of the boat. The beam is the side of the boat. And it's directly at right angles on this beam. Sorry, that was a beam for a minute. Okay, that's beam reaching. Now, quite obviously, the windward side and the leeward side. This is the windward side of the boat because it's closest to the wind. And over this side, you have this, the leeward side. It's actually spelt leeward, but pronounced leeward. Okay, so because this boat is now, this side of the boat here is said to be in the lee of the wind. The side that does not get in the wind first is in the lee. And this is going to be quite important later for your collision regulations, hopefully, anyway. Okay, so windward side, leeward side. So I think probably it might make some sense then, if I leave the wind on there, if I draw another boat, couple of boats here. This boat here is sailing along there. The green boat here is sailing along over here. So we also then talk about the windward boat. That boat is to windward, and this boat is the leeward boat, because the wind is getting to this one first and this one second. This boat here is in the lee of that one there. So windward boat and leeward boat. It's actually pronounced leeward, which is a bit weird. And I won't go into the old Navy reasons that we came up with those phrases and why they exist quite yet. So windward boat, I'm going to make this short, windward, and leeward boat. Again, when we come to the collision regulations, these will be quite important. Okay, for now, Well, we're already into 28 minutes past, so we've done 20 minutes of chat there, guys. What I might just show you one more time is coming up and bearing away when you haven't got all the drawings on the board. So this boat's sailing on what I call a close reach, heading up into the wind, is turning up to what we call a close hauled course. Sails are now tight in. Notice they were out a bit further on this one. They're tighter in on this one, and this one now is probably sailing right on the edge of the no-go zone. That's the no-go. He's headed up into the wind, bearing away, turning this way. Does anybody have an idea if he's turned this way, what he's had to do with his sails? So I'm going to unmute you. What has he had to do with his sails here as he's turned to the right, turned away from the wind? Anybody come in there? These sails.
Is he tacking? I don't know.
So no, tacking is into the wind, would be going up that way. This one, that's tacking, turning up into the wind all the time. This one here, I'm talking.
A broad reach? I don't know. I'm sorry.
Keep it going. Where's the wind on the beam?
Oh!
So he's on a beam reach. But the important thing here, and the next thing we're going to do in the next session, is 5 essentials. Every time you make a movement, change your course, there are 5 things you've got to think about. We'll explain them in the next thing. But what I'm getting at here is those sails are tight in on that boat. They're a little bit looser here. And as he's turned around there, he's had to let his sails out. Now, again, if you look at the angle of this sail, that sail, and that sail, the angle compared to where the wind is coming from, which is here, the angle hasn't changed much.
Oh, yeah.
Because you've let them out to keep them at the same angle to the wind. So that's the first thing you have to do when you're bearing away, turning away from the wind. And this is heading up when he's turned up into the wind. Head up. Okay, so what I'm trying to get through here is you have to make decisions about what to do with your sails, and that's one. There are 4 other things, the 5 essentials, which we'll come on to next time. I want to keep these quite short and snappy, guys. I mean, I've already, from my previous couple of Zoom sessions, I keep getting silly questions in. I'll tell you one in a minute from beginners. It's an actual fact, the funniest one was not from a beginner. It's from one of the sailors at the club. Let's go back whilst I'm running this out. Although I think these appear on my slides if I'm not careful. Let's have a little look here again. What we're going to do is we're moving on to, this is what we will be moving on to next time. I'm going to leave you with this little thought. Have you got that? Oh, I've just admitted someone. Luis is coming in. You are unmuted, I think, at the moment. Can you confirm that, Kate?
Yeah.
Kate, you are unmuted. So we have got Luis joining us. Hi, Luis.
Hi, sorry for being late.
Oh, you are late, Luis. We're about to finish because we're at 20 minutes. So good timing to let you know that what we'll do is the club website. The club have a nice Zoom account that's now connected to YouTube. So I will post this on YouTube. So you're going to have a starring role, Louis, coming in late. You're going to get all the plaudits. This is actually my final slide for the night, Louis. But we'll have a chat afterwards. And these are the things you need to learn for next time, because we will be going on to collision regulations. We've done all the points. That's no problem. Just have a little look at the YouTube video. I'll send you all a link so you can recap. And had you got your videos on, you would be seen on screen, of course, starring roles. I like to see a face.
Will do.
Okay, so this is the last slide. Let's just leave you with this. Port. This is the port side of the boat. Let me get my pencil up. What colour should we have? We'll have a red. There's port. It's in red, so the whole of this side of the boat is the port side of the boat. I've just coloured in. Now, I remember it because port has 4 letters, and it's the left-hand side.
Ah, clever.
There's only a little bit of port left in the glass. Port's red. So there's one way of remembering it. The starboard is the other side, obviously over there. This is starboard. Some people remember that starboard has two R's in it. So it's right. Port only has one. But if you remember port is the left, starboard's the right, you'll be okay. The whole of this side of the boat is the starboard side. And of course, at the back here, we have the stern. Now, that becomes very important to remember where they are, because when the collision regs come in, collision regulations, there are certain rules that you have to know that about. I don't know who's in the background, but you're muted again just for a minute. Okay. One thing I will throw in is which one's on port tack and starboard tack. Let's get out of the pens. I'm going to leave you with this for the final bit. Going to get my eraser out, hadn't I, and throw a few of these. So if the wind is coming over the left-hand side of the boat, which is the one that I've been looking at here, slide left. There. Oh, that's an eraser. Apologies. So the wind's coming here, it's down here. It's coming over the left-hand side of the boat, the port side, which means you are on port tack. Very important, again, with the rules and regulations later. Obviously, this one over here, which I could be clever and turn it into a green drawing. Wind now is coming over the right-hand side, and you're on starboard tack. The other way to remember it, and this is drawn very badly, because if you see this guy, he will always be sitting there. That's perfect. He's sitting on the starboard side because he's balancing the boat, and the sails are out this side. So on starboard tack, your sails are out to port, and he's sitting on the starboard side, because otherwise the wind's going to blow that boat and capsize it. Now, they've drawn this one wrong on the other side. I hadn't noticed that till now. This guy here should be sitting over here on the opposite side to balance the boat. So port tack, the wind is coming over the left-hand side. The sails are sitting over here on the starboard side, and this idiot should be on that side, otherwise he's in the capsize. So there's a few things there. We'll unmute you all, come out of here. I'll get some pretty pictures on rather than show you the virtual backgrounds. What do you want to see? Do you want to see the lasers on the river? Here's a few in Vasiliki. You could even have, no, that's me underwater. You don't want to see that one. We'll have some lasers on the River Thames. So guys, any questions? I'm going to unmute, I've got to go back out of this to unmute you all. Bear with me. There we go. We can have a chat. So anything from you, Marco, just to start with?
No question. No question.
All pretty good?
Yeah, all clear.
These things will be important. Now, normally when I'm doing a teaching in theory in the classroom at the club, there's lots of interaction. And there's a question goes around, are we on port tack? Are we on starboard? and it's much more interactive. It's harder to do it here because I want to record it, so I hope you bear with me on that. What about Bastien? Anything from Bastien?
Yeah, I was wondering, the no-go zone, is that always the same size, or does it differ by wind, by the different boats, etc.?
Yeah, it certainly differs, not by wind, by different boats. Some boats are able to sail very close to the wind, very close hauled, and that might be as little as, even 40 degrees in some cases on some very high pointing boats, 40 degrees. As you get different boats, it goes out to 45. It can be, so 45, let's start at 45. It can go out to 90 degrees. You see my hands there, for boats that can't sail close to the wind. And that is usually catamarans. For want of a better description, your catamarans can't sail very close to the wind. And there's a long way to tack to get to the other side of the no-go zone through 90 degrees. Yeah?
Thanks.
Anything from you there, Katie?
No, but thank you for going through it all. I think I'm going to try and memorize those different names. There's quite a lot of words, aren't there?
There are a few, and that's in 20 minutes. We will do a quick recap at the beginning, and they will come in more and more and more into the theory sessions as we go through. We've got about 8 weeks I can do here. What we're going to do, I'll give you a quick rundown. We've got collision regulations. We'll sail around a triangular course. We'll learn a bit about weather and wind strengths. We'll learn some knots. If you can all get a piece of string or rope, I'll go through the essential knots with you, and I'll tell you why we use them. You can always copy your knots online, but why we use particular knots is really important. We'll have aerodynamic theory, how the sails work and what's going on with the rudder under the water. Tides, weather, how the tides work, all these different things we'll bring in. Local conditions, what happens in the river when it flows faster in the middle, why, slower on the edges. So there's a lot of important things, interesting things. I find it interesting, or I did when I was learning. And a lot of them are essential to what you have to be thinking about before you go out. Is that wind strength too much? So I have to make my sail smaller and put a reef in. There's loads of stuff we can do here. I'm going to leave you with one thing though now, guys. The question I had, I'll just tell you this one. The question I had from one of my last sessions was from a regular member of the club. And it was somebody who had his dinghy at the sailing club for quite a long time. And he said, Rat, I've now taken my dinghy away from the sailing club and I want to sail it on the sea. And I found it floats a lot better. Can you tell me what's in this salt water?
Oh, gosh.
That was a question from quite an experienced. Marco is looking confused. Now we've got a grin. Okay, guys, I'm sorry I'm going to have to leave you quite quickly. I'm going to stop the recording. Don't go away because we can have a chat. One moment.